In a quiet, sun-dappled town nestled between rolling hills and whispering woods, lived a 10-year-old boy named Tim. The town itself was a gentle place, where neighbors greeted each other with warm smiles, and the days seemed to drift by at a slower, more thoughtful pace. Tim's house stood at the end of a tree-lined lane, its windows always aglow with the laughter and love of his family. Tim was a boy whose eyes sparkled with endless curiosity, always searching for something new to discover. His gaze held a sense of wonder that made even the most ordinary things seem magical. Whether he was peering into the garden or watching the clouds drift by, Tim's imagination was always at work, painting stories in the air. Each day, Tim followed the gentle rhythms of his small-town life. Mornings began with the familiar walk to school, his backpack bouncing as he hurried along the sidewalk. Afternoons were spent at his desk, pencil in hand, tackling homework with a thoughtful frown. Evenings brought the comfort of home, where the scent of dinner filled the air and laughter echoed through the cozy living room. Yet, even as he enjoyed these routines, Tim's heart often wandered to distant places. He would gaze out his bedroom window, imagining far-off lands and daring adventures. Sometimes, he'd sit quietly in the backyard, lost in dreams of exploring mysterious forests or sailing across uncharted seas. There was a longing inside him, a hope that something extraordinary might be waiting just beyond the horizon. Tim found wonder in the smallest things: a line of ants marching across the pavement, a cloud shaped like a dragon drifting lazily overhead, or the gentle rustle of leaves in the afternoon breeze. To him, the world was full of tiny miracles, each one a clue to a bigger story waiting to unfold. He would spend hours observing nature, asking questions, and letting his imagination run wild. His parents noticed his inquisitive spirit and did everything they could to nurture it. They read him stories of brave explorers and magical lands, filling his mind with dreams and possibilities. At the dinner table, they encouraged his questions, no matter how big or small, and listened patiently as he shared his latest discoveries. On weekends, the family would set out on nature walks, exploring the woods and meadows that surrounded their town. Tim loved these adventures, collecting wildflowers, searching for animal tracks, and learning about the world around him. These moments with his family shaped his kindness and deepened his sense of wonder, teaching him to see beauty in every corner of life. At night, as the world grew quiet and the stars blinked awake, Tim would lie in bed, his mind swirling with dreams. He was content with his peaceful life, grateful for the love that surrounded him. Yet, deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was waiting for him, something that would break the gentle rhythm of his days and lead him into a new adventure. One morning, as Tim turned the corner on his way to school, he paused, sensing that something was different. There was a strange excitement in the air, a feeling that today would not be like any other. He didn't know it yet, but an unexpected encounter was about to change everything he thought he knew about his quiet town, and about himself. The stage was set for an ordinary day to become unforgettable, and for Tim's greatest adventure to begin. One crisp autumn afternoon, as golden sunlight filtered through the trees and a gentle breeze rustled the branches, Tim decided to take a different route home from school. The familiar sidewalks and busy streets were replaced by winding paths and the soft, earthy scent of fallen leaves. Tim felt a sense of adventure as he wandered deeper into the park, his backpack bouncing lightly with each step. With every step, the satisfying crunch of dry leaves echoed beneath his sneakers, making him smile. The park was quieter than usual, with only the distant laughter of other children and the occasional chirp of a bird breaking the silence. Tim took his time, kicking at piles of leaves and watching them scatter in the cool air. As he wandered, something unusual caught his eye near an old wooden bench. At first, it looked like a forgotten bundle of rags tucked beneath the seat. But then, to his surprise, the bundle shifted ever so slightly. Tim's curiosity was instantly piqued, and he moved closer, careful not to make any sudden noises. Peering under the bench, Tim discovered a small, shivering dog with scruffy golden-brown fur. Its wide, frightened eyes darted nervously, and its body trembled as if it hadn't felt warmth or kindness in a long time. The little dog looked lost and alone, unsure whether to trust the stranger before it. Tim crouched down at a safe distance, lowering himself to the dog's level. He spoke in a gentle, soothing voice, careful not to startle the frightened animal. "Hey there, little one," he whispered, hoping his calm tone would help the dog feel safe. He stayed still, letting the dog get used to his presence. To comfort the trembling creature, Tim began to talk softly about his day at school, the friends he played with, and his bright red bicycle that he loved to ride. He told the dog about his favorite games and how he sometimes wished for a friend to share his adventures. As he spoke, he noticed the dog's ears twitching, listening to every word. Gradually, the dog's fear seemed to melt away, replaced by a cautious curiosity. Its body relaxed just a little, and for the first time, a flicker of trust appeared in its eyes. The dog edged closer, drawn by Tim's kindness and gentle words, as if sensing that this boy meant no harm. In that quiet, magical moment, a silent understanding passed between the lost dog and the kind-hearted boy. Tim reached out his hand, and the dog, after a moment's hesitation, sniffed his fingers. A bond had begun to form, one built on trust, hope, and the promise of new friendship. Tim's unexpected adventure in the park was just beginning, and neither he nor the little dog would ever be quite the same again. As dusk settled, Tim knew he couldn't leave the dog alone. He offered his sandwich, patiently coaxing the dog closer until it took food from his hand. With trust established, Tim encouraged the dog to follow him home, promising safety. The little dog, hesitant but hopeful, trailed behind him all the way to his doorstep. Tim felt a new sense of responsibility. This lost dog was now his to protect. At home, the dog waited patiently, eyes shining with hope. Tim had found a friend and a mission to help this lost soul find its way. The journey was just beginning. Tim's parents listened carefully to his story and agreed to help him search for the dog's family. They named the dog Buddy and made sure he was comfortable and safe for the night. The next morning, Tim drew colorful posters with Buddy's picture and their phone number, determined to help. He and his father posted them all around the neighborhood, asking everyone they met if they recognized the dog. Despite all their efforts, no one called or seemed to know Buddy. As Buddy slept peacefully for the first time in days, Tim realized that finding his home would take patience and hope. The search for Buddy's family had only just begun, and Tim was ready for the journey ahead. Days passed, and Buddy became part of Tim's daily life. They played fetch, took walks, and grew inseparable, their bond deepening with each moment. Tim wanted Buddy to find his family, but the thought of saying goodbye grew harder. When a larger dog threatened Buddy, Tim stood his ground, protecting his friend with newfound courage. Buddy's trust in Tim became absolute. He followed him everywhere, a loyal shadow. Their friendship was built on kindness, trust, and bravery. Tim learned that caring for another meant facing fears and making sacrifices. Together, they faced the uncertainty of what tomorrow would bring. Nearly a week had passed since Buddy had come into Tim's life, and with each day, hope of finding the dog's real family seemed to slip further away. Tim spent his evenings glancing anxiously at the phone, the silence in the house growing heavier. He wondered if anyone was still searching, if someone out there missed Buddy as much as he would if the roles were reversed. Then, just as he was about to give up, the phone rang, shattering the quiet with a sound that was both startling and full of possibility. On the other end of the line was a woman whose voice trembled with hope and disbelief. She explained that she had seen the lost dog poster Tim had put up around the neighborhood. For days, she had walked the streets, scanning every yard and alley, desperate for any sign of her missing companion. The flyer had caught her eye just when she was beginning to lose faith. Relief and sadness washed over Tim in equal measure. He had grown attached to Buddy, who had filled his days with laughter and companionship. Yet, he knew deep down that this reunion was the right thing. The thought of saying goodbye was bittersweet. He had succeeded in his mission, but it meant letting go of a friend he'd come to love. When Buddy's owner, Mrs. Gable, arrived at Tim's door, the dog's reaction was immediate and unmistakable. Buddy's tail wagged furiously, and he bounded across the yard, barking with joy as he leapt into her arms. The reunion was filled with happy tears and laughter, a moment of pure, unfiltered happiness that made all the searching and waiting worthwhile. Mrs. Gable, her eyes shining with gratitude, thanked Tim over and over for his kindness and bravery. She told him how much Buddy, whose real name was Sparky, meant to her family, and how they had been heartbroken since he'd gone missing. Her words were sincere, and Tim could see the relief and happiness in her face. Sitting together in the living room, Tim shared the story of how he'd found Buddy wandering alone, and how he'd cared for him in the days that followed. Mrs. Gable listened intently, her appreciation growing with every detail. She promised to keep in touch and let Tim know how Sparky was settling back in at home. As the time came for Sparky to leave, Tim knelt down and hugged him tightly, whispering a quiet goodbye. It was an emotional farewell, filled with both sadness and pride. He knew he would miss Sparky's playful energy and loyal companionship, but he also knew that he had given him back to the people who loved him most. After they left, the house felt emptier than ever. The echoes of Sparky's paws and joyful barks lingered in the quiet rooms. Tim stood alone in the living room, feeling a deep sense of loss, but also a quiet satisfaction. He had done the right thing, even though it was hard. Somewhere across town, a family was whole again. Sparky was back where he belonged, surrounded by people who cherished him. Tim took comfort in knowing he had played a part in reuniting them, returning a beloved friend to his rightful home. As Tim walked outside that evening, the sun setting in a blaze of color, he realized the adventure had changed him. He had discovered the power of compassion and the importance of doing what's right, even when it means letting go. The memory of Sparky would stay with him, a reminder that sometimes the hardest goodbyes are also the most meaningful. The house was quiet without Sparky, but Tim felt different, stronger, braver. He realized kindness meant taking action, even when it was hard. The bond he'd formed with Sparky showed him the power of connection and the courage it takes to let go. Tim understood that true kindness sometimes means saying goodbye for someone else's happiness. He hadn't lost a dog. He'd reunited a family. The experience left him with a quiet confidence and a readiness for new adventures. Tim knew now that even small acts of kindness could change the world, and himself.